Hello and welcome back to I'm on Your Side. This is our third episode, and I feel like I am finally getting into the groove of this. I feel really good, I feel really confident, and I feel really excited about hopping on the mic every week and getting to talk with you guys. In this episode, I'm just going to jump right into it. I'm excited about this episode. It's our first Q&A advice-like episode, and it's all about friendships, all about adult friendships, specifically making friends in your 20s, maintaining friends in your 20s, letting go of friendships in your 20s. We're getting into all of that. So I'm really excited to dive into this episode. But before we get into that, let's talk about what has been going on. You guys, I feel like when's the last time we talked? Last Sunday is the last time we talked. So since last Sunday, or really since last Tuesday when I recorded the episode, so much has gone on. I have had a therapist appointment. I've had a psychiatrist appointment. I have had a lot of conversations with a lot of friends, all centered around this belief that my bipolar diagnosis is incorrect, and instead I should be having an ADHD diagnosis. And once that was brought to my attention and I started thinking about it, that makes so much more sense to me and feels so much better to me. Over time, my bipolar diagnosis just stopped feeling right to me. It stopped feeling true to me. I was diagnosed right after COVID and in 2021, and right after the ending of my abusive relationship. Like, a lot was going on in my life that led that diagnosis to feel true and authentic, but over time it just stopped feeling that way. And about 6 months ago, I brought it up to my psychiatrist, and she was saying that like maybe, but probably not. And she kind of shut it down. And going forward, I talked to my therapist about it, and my therapist was like, yes, I believe that that is likely true. And so then I got a new psychiatrist, and I've been talking to her about it. So we're working through that whole process. And once I have a true diagnosis and a more well-rounded idea about what's going on with my own mental health, I want to do a full episode talking about my mental health journey, my different diagnoses, how I've dealt with them, different medicines that I've tried. I'm not going to give specific names of medicine just because I think that can be more harmful than helpful, but just getting all into my diagnosis, my mental health, all of that, because I think that episode would be really helpful for a lot of us. And I know that some of you guys do follow me for my mental health content, so I think that it'd be really great to bring into the podcast. So that's what's been going on with that. And just emotionally, I've been all over the place because I feel like my bipolar diagnosis, which was such a true and genuine part of me and something that I was proudly telling people, I really felt no shame about it. I was telling people, I was being open and honest about it. I was obviously talking about it online. And for that to feel like it was one day a really big part of my identity to another day not being part of my identity at all, it's just really interesting. And thinking about the life that I could have lived had I had an ADHD diagnosis sooner and earlier. So I've been like really emotionally going through all of that, and it's just been really tough. And I think that honestly, this week sitting down, I've been like excited about filming the podcast, but also just really nervous about it because I was thinking, like, how am I going to make any episode and not talk about this? Like, how am I going to brush this under the rug? Because it has been on the forefront of my brain since I talked to my therapist, my psychiatrist about it, and it felt so inauthentic to not share that with you guys. So that is not the full story. We're going to get into the full story, like I said, but I just wanted to tell you guys what I've been thinking about, what I've been dealing with. And I just feel like since I've been so emotional and just so confused and all over the place, I just feel like my content has been looking really different this week. And I just, I feel so, what I've been saying is that I feel so unfamiliar to myself right now, but so eager to know myself deeply. And they're just things that I've carried with me that are no longer true. And I'm like reworking and rewiring my brain and figuring out what is true and figuring out what does feel true and learning once again how to advocate for my own mental state to professionals, which can be really, really hard. But that's what I'm going through. That's what I'm dealing with, and it's going to be fine. I think that I know that I'm going to see my psychiatrist again in a couple of weeks, and we're going to talk about what we've done over the past 2 weeks. And that time she is going to have talked to my therapist, and we're going to have just a better idea of what's going on and the journey we have ahead of us. So that is just like a brain dump of what's been going on since we last talked. And it just didn't feel right to start this episode and not talk to you guys about that. Just 'cause I like to catch you up on my life. And not every episode is like a life catch up episode. But I do feel like this is such a big thing going on that it just felt wrong to not start the episode and just tell you exactly what's been on my mind. So that said, going into what I've been doing, I'm still watching a lot of Yellowstone, but also watching so much of The Bear. In case you did not watch the Emmys or catch up with the Emmys on any social media, The Bear, absolutely, the cast just like swept at the Emmys, and it was just so incredible to see. I'm so excited for all of them, especially Io. I think that she deserves the entire world and then some. If you're not familiar with her work, she is in The Bear, she was in the movie Bottoms, and she has some other things in her filmography that I think that you should absolutely check out because I think that she is perfect. So that's what I've been watching. Alex and I, like I told you guys last week, are going to Aruba in a couple of weeks, and I told you guys that I was just kind of like struggling with just the idea of like body neutrality, just being able to look at my body and say it is good as it is healthy as it is sustaining me as it is, and there's nothing that I need to change. And I feel a lot better about that now than I did previously. I think just really getting to sit with that and remind myself of that over the past week has been really helpful, and just reminding myself that there is nothing wrong with my body. My body is wonderful and perfect and healthy as it is, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with it. Basically, just reiterating what I said last week, but I've had more time to sit with it and think about it, and I feel a lot better about it now. And so now I'm just like really excited for vacation. I think it's going to be so much fun to spend 8 days on the beach drinking pina coladas and doing whatever I want. And that's really all I plan to do is drink pina coladas and do whatever I want, which is really going to be read a lot of books. And I'm recording this on a Wednesday, and I'm really excited because Wednesday is wing night amongst my friends and I. We go to this place that has all you can eat wings for $15, and it's truly all you can eat. You can eat as many wings as you could ever want. And then we get fries and we sit and we chat. And yeah, most of the time we take half a gummy, and it is just, or a full gummy, depending on their vibe. I am a half a gummy max out girl, but we all have different vibes. And I'm really excited to do that with my friends tonight, which leads us into this episode all about adult friendships, all about navigating friendships, all about keeping and maintaining friendships. So we're going to get into it. And at first I thought this episode was going to be me like sharing a lot first and then doing like a small Q&A section, but a lot of you guys wrote in really, really good questions or asked for advice on things that I was going to talk about. So I figured why not bring you into the whole episode and do that. And you may be asking, what are my qualifications? Why am I qualified to talk about friendship in your 20s? Well, because I'm in my 20s and I have friends, and those are my qualifications. And I have friends, not in like this easy, they just appeared in my life and it was all wonderful way. Like I worked really hard for my friendships, and I've been reflecting on my friendships while I've been like brainstorming this podcast episode and the topics that I wanted to talk about. And I thought about the friends that I've had for most of my life. I've had best friends from like my early childhood, my teen years that I've kept with me, and it has not always been super easy to maintain those friendships, especially as we went to different colleges, we're in different phases of life, and it really does take a lot of work. But having friends, especially long-term friends, is so special because they got to see you where you were and then where you are, and then hopefully if they are good friends and they show up for you, they're going to be alongside you for where you're going. But that's not to say that every friendship you're ever going to have is going to be with you forever. That's not to say that. I think that is a beautiful thing to have friendships and to love your friends for where they are and recognize that they're not always going to come with you. So we're going to get all into that if you guys are ready for it. We're going to start with the number one most asked question, which is how do you make friends in a new city? And you guys, this is hard. I moved to Denver almost 2 years ago, and I have gone through quite a few friends since I've moved here. And at first I was kind of beating myself up about that. I was like, why didn't I move here and just like keep my same friends? And I think that I have been many different versions of myself in the past 2 years. I have grown a lot and changed a lot and evolved a lot. And the things that I was looking for in friends when I first moved here is not necessarily what I'm looking for in friends now. I think that I want different things and expect different things and ask for different things. And I think that that is a totally wonderful and beautiful thing. That said, how do you make friends? reach out to people. I'm telling you, reach out to people that you have not talked to since literally second grade. There is a chance that you have not cleared out your Instagram following and you're still following Sarah from second grade English class, and she now lives in that city you just moved to, and you haven't spoken in years upon years. But what is the harm in reaching out and saying, hey, Sarah, I just moved to Colorado and I noticed that you lived here too. Would you want to grab coffee? Would you want to grab dinner? Odds are Sarah is going to say yes, because Sarah is probably really nice, actually. And you're going to get coffee with Sarah, and Sarah's going to, you're going to have a really good time. And then a couple weeks down the line, Sarah's going to say, hey, I'm going out with my friends tonight. Do you want to come? And you're going to say yes. I know it's going to make you nervous, because it made me really nervous. And I know you're going to be like, well, I don't know these people. And what if they're not nice? And what if they don't like me? Or what if I don't have a good time? And you could what if yourself into not going. You really, really can. You can what if yourself into oblivion. But you're going to go. And then maybe you're not going to click with all 5 of Sarah's friends, but there's going to be 1 or 2 that you really like. You're going to say, hey, I loved hanging out with you. What's your Instagram? What's your number? Let's do this again. And you're going to reach out to those people. And that is how you're going to create a network of friends. It is not necessarily just like starting from absolute scratch, knowing no one and walking up to strangers on the street and saying, want to be friends. It is reaching out to connections that you have had forever that you've just kind of forgotten about. But in the instance that you really don't know anyone, like you moved to this new city, you've looked through your Instagram following, you have thought deeply about anyone who has moved here or lived here in the last 5 to 10 years at this point, and you know no one, you are going to do something that you really enjoy doing for yourself. Say that's a workout class. Say that's joining a knitting club. Say that it's joining a run club. Whatever you really enjoy doing for yourself, you're going to go to that activity, and there are going to be like-minded people there. And the hardest part, I know it's the hardest part, but you are going to go up to at least one person and just introduce yourself and ask maybe if they want to grab coffee before the next event. It truly, genuinely works. And the worst thing they'll say is I'm busy, and then you'll try it again with someone else. And I know that some of us have social anxiety, and so the idea of going up to an absolute stranger is literally terrifying. But what I do hope for you is that you're in a community, whatever community you've decided to join for yourself, you're in a community where they really do welcome friendships, they really do welcome connection, and they help you with that, right? Go up to the instructor, even, hey, I just moved here. Do you know anybody that would like be interested in grabbing coffee with me, interested in grabbing dinner with me? Maybe the instructor themselves wants to do it with you, or maybe they'll just know people because they teach at that studio, they teach at that location, they know their client base, and they can connect you with someone. It is really like making friends, I've learned, is about getting over the initial fear of rejection, saying yes, they may reject me, but they could also end up being my absolute very best friend. And I have to give people the opportunity to show up for me. I have to give people the opportunity to be kind to me. I have to give people the opportunity to be my friend. So I think it works. We're going to try that, and you guys are going to let me know how that goes for you. You're going to try it to one person this week. And like, it's okay if you go up to one person and you guys have coffee or you guys have dinner and you don't click. You try it again. Like, you're not going to click with literally everyone you meet. That is impossible. There are some people that you're just not going to vibe with. Your energy is not going to be aligned, and that is totally fine. There are so many people that want to be your friend. You just have to meet them. Okay, this next question is really good. I love it. How to handle a friendship breakup when the friendship isn't as close as you thought it was. I have recently gone through a friendship breakup where we were at one phase of our lives super, super close. In college, we were very best friends. And over time, we just kind of got into different career fields, started surrounding ourselves with different people, developed different expectations for our friendships, and we kind of drifted apart. We like came in and out of friendship, but we were never really as close as we were in college, but we worked really, really hard to maintain that friendship. And we had a few different tiffs, I think 2 different tiffs, and we kind of like got back together like we were in a relationship, but got back together in a friendship sense, and things worked for like 6 months, maybe a year, and then something would come up again. And I noticed upon reflection and talking about this in therapy, every time we would stop being friends was because I asserted a boundary that they didn't like. And I really swept that under the rug for a long time for the sake of like maintaining this friendship that I had for a long time. But ultimately, I am not the same person at 25 that I was at 18 or 19 when we met. I am a very different person. And the things that I want out of my friends and the things that I'm willing to give to my friends have changed drastically. Some people in your life are going to love you for the version of yourself and the boundaries that you have when you meet them. And they're not going to want to stick around when you become a new person. They're not going to want to stick around when you establish new boundaries, because those boundaries or that elevated version of yourself is going to make them really, really uncomfortable, especially if they haven't done the work to evolve as well. And I'm not saying every friendship that ends is because you've become this like pinnacle of a person and you are wonderful and you are perfect and you're great, and then they just haven't evolved at all. I'm not saying that. That rarely, if ever, happens. Really never happens, because none of us are ever going to be this perfect version of ourselves. But we're going to try. We're going to try really damn hard to be better every day. And some people just aren't going to come along with us for that. Or some people are going to become an incredible, wonderful version of themselves, but it's just going to look different than who you are, and the friendship isn't going to be there. So this friend that I had in college that I had a few tiffs with, we tried to make it work for as long as we could. And then in the end of it, it was like, you know what? I think that we just want different things out of friendship. I think that we have really different expectations. We were often getting into these very minor kerfluffles, you could say, because she expected me to show up in a certain way that made me uncomfortable or that I wasn't prepared to do, or I expected her to show up in a way that wasn't comfortable or she wasn't prepared to do. And I think that ultimately it is totally fine to have expectations, but when those expectations are not communicated, how do you expect them to be met? You know what I mean? And I think the best way to deal with the ending of a friendship like that is to really reflect on all of the good times, all of the wonderful, sweet times that you had together, and see that for what it is and hold that in your heart for what it was. And it was incredible and it was life-giving, right? But that doesn't mean that it has to be eternal. It doesn't mean that that has to be your best friend for the rest of your life. Acknowledging the goodness in it before moving on is really what helps with closure, I fully believe. I want to go back and say that I do think that's different than ending a friendship because one party or both parties aren't willing to put in the work anymore. I think that showing up to a friendship and recognizing that you just want different things is very different than one party or both parties saying, I just actually don't have any effort to give to this relationship. I have no effort to give to showing up to this friendship and really developing it and working on it. And then one party or both parties backing away from it. And I do think that is kind of a harder thing to grasp, right? Because it's like, okay, then it does feel like there is fault to be assigned. There is blame to be assigned. And I really want to warn us against trying to assign blame at the end of friendships when it's like that, because we don't really know in situations like that what the other person is going through necessarily. They could be going through something that they have chosen not to share with you for whatever reason. And you may be thinking, well, that's my best friend and they should be able to tell me everything. And in a perfect world, in an ideal world, your best friend will want to tell you everything and confide in you and you will have perfect advice for them. But that is not how it always works. And some people really do retreat into themselves, even if they are your very best friend. And at that point, you say, I love you. I am here for you. I'm here when you need me, because you also don't want to be in a friendship where you are the only person giving effort. You don't want to be in a friendship where you're the only person showing up. At some point, you have to look at this friendship that is on the rocks and say, I am the only one showing up. I am the only one reaching out. I am the only one planning things for us. I am the only one inviting them out. I am the only one texting and checking in. And you deserve a friend who does the things that you do for them as well, especially if you've made that expectation clear. Hey, it really makes me feel loved when you reach out. It really makes me feel valued when you tell me you want to hang out with me. It really makes me feel good when you stop by, whatever it could be, whatever it is that you're doing for them. Because what I've learned in my life thus far is that you cannot tell someone how to love you simply by doing it. Some people need you to tell them explicitly how to love you, or else they're not going to do it. But trying to go out of your way to show up and show up and show up and expecting that they're just going to like understand what you're doing and then return that amount of effort is not always going to work out. Sometimes you need to sit them down, send them a text, shoot them a call, whatever, and be like, hey, this is what I need from you. Are you ready and willing to show up for me in that way? And if not, it is okay to let the friendship be. Okay, one of you said, I've had bad friendship breakups and I'm scared I'm codependent for all of my friends. And I want to answer that question with another question. Do you think it's possible that your codependency is actually pushing your friends away? Do you think it's possible that you are having this expectation of them that they are not ready and willing to meet? I think that codependency is a really heavy word and a really heavy feeling. It's like, I need you to survive. I need you to feel like I can function and go about my day to day. And that is a lot of pressure to put on friends. And I think that having really bad friendship breakups can scar us, and that can make us want to go to our other friends and pull them in closer. But pulling them in closer doesn't necessarily mean that we need to be codependent, right? It just means, hey, I'm going through something and I just need my friends to be close to me right now. And your good friends, your genuine friends who do connect with you and do love you, are going to show up for you through that, codependency aside. So I do think that it's worth looking at the codependency you're feeling and maybe talking about that in therapy. Maybe even talking about that to your friends. Hey, I'm feeling like I'm being really codependent on you guys right now. And it's not even really codependency if they're not reciprocating, right? Because codependency requires two. I think that you could say, hi, I'm being super dependent on you right now. I'm feeling like I'm putting a lot of pressure on you right now. How do you feel? What can I do? What can you do? How can we make this a friendship that is mutually beneficial, where we both feel like we're taking something from it? Because I think that if you are being hyper dependent on your friends, and you're not giving them space to tell you what they need to, then there's a possibility that they feel really drained by it, which is causing a really bad friend breakup. Okay, next question. How to find true friends. Never had that lifelong bestie because I always get burned somehow, which is really hard to feel like you're looking around and everyone has this best friend, or even everyone has this group of best friends, and you're like, where's mine? And my biggest lesson that I've learned is that I have tried to like collect all of these friends by being what I thought they needed me to be at that time, making jokes I thought they wanted me to make, wearing outfits I thought they wanted me to wear, going places and doing things I thought they wanted me to do, and neglecting the fact that those aren't things that I actually enjoyed. And because of that, I wasn't creating really true lifelong friendships. I was creating very situational friendships based off of this version of myself that I didn't even like, based off of this version of myself that I wasn't even genuinely being myself. You know what I mean? So I think that when you're looking around and you're wondering, how can I make closer, true friendships? It's like, how honest are you being when you're showing up to new friendships? How yourself are you being when you're showing up to friendships? And I'm not saying that you're going to run into like immediately perfect, wonderful, super close best friends just immediately by being yourself. But I'm saying you're going to spend less time with relationships and friendships that aren't meant for you, the more authentic you're going to be, because they can see you for who you are and say, actually, that's not, someone that I connect with. And then they can move on. You can move on. Beautiful, perfect. You've gone through that process. Now you can try again. And I know it can be really exhausting and draining to put yourself out there, because it's like, well, shit, okay, everyone seems to make friends so easily. How do I do it? And you do it just by being yourself. You do it by putting yourself out there and being yourself and seeing who you attract. And I guarantee that you are going to find people who really do connect and resonate with you. Oh, this is a really good one. I don't know how to get BFF level close with girls anymore. I feel like it used to come easy. Oh my God, I really do relate to this. I feel like having really close friendships used to come a lot easier to me when I had less maybe responsibilities in my life, and I could commit a lot more of myself to my friendships when it was back in college and I didn't have a full-time job and I had a relationship that I was in, but I still had so much time for my friends, and I was so established in that relationship that I could say, okay, I'm not going to spend, Saturday, Sunday with you. I'm not going to spend today after my classes with you. I'm going to go be with my girls. And it was so much easier to develop that closeness, especially because all of my friends in that phase of life were in that same phase of life. We were all college age. We were either in relationships or dating. None of us were married. We were all just doing very similar things. And so establishing close friendship felt so much easier. But now as we get older, I'm not sure how old this question asker was, but I do know that me being at 25, it's like half of my friends, more than half of my friends, are married. And some of my friends are still casually dating, or just not even really dating, just like sleeping with people, which is totally fine. And then some of my friends, like me, are in long-term relationships where the end goal is marriage, but they're not there quite yet. Some of us have full-time jobs we love. Some of us have full-time jobs we absolutely hate. Some of us are in between jobs and have been in between jobs for quite a long time. Like, all of us are in such different phases of life, and it feels like, how do I connect with these women when we're all doing vastly different things. And it is really, really hard, actually. I think about my friends who, like one of my very best friends, her name is Evie, and she's married. And we are just in different phases of life doing very different things. But I love her core. I love her soul. I love who she is at the absolute core of her being. And I fully believe she would say the same thing about me. So even though we are in very different phases of life and doing different things and, whatever it may be, at the end of the day, I know who she is and I love who she is. And I connect with who she is. Her personality, her energy, her charisma, her care, the way that she shows up for me, things like that allow us to remain like very best friend level close, even though our day to days, even though our relationships look very different. But also, I want to encourage us to let our friendships ebb and flow, right? Just because they were your very best friend when you were 16 doesn't mean they're going to be your very best friend when you're 20. And then before you know it, you're 25 and you guys are closer than ever. You have to let your friendships ebb and flow. You have to let yourself grow into different versions of yourself and allow the other person to see you and say, either I'm going to meet you there or I'm going to let you go and be okay with whatever that outcome may be. Someone asked, when is it time to move on from friendships when in different stages of life, nothing in common? I think that answers your question. You guys are in completely different phases of life and you have nothing in common. I think the difference between what this question is asking and what I answered in the last question was an example of like Evie and I, is that we are in different phases of life, but we have a lot in common. The things that we enjoy doing, the things that we enjoy talking about are very, very similar. We always have something to talk about. Even though we're not in the same phase of life, we do have things in common. And I do think that answers the question right there. You have nothing in common and you're in different phases of life. I think that just tells you right then and there, it might be time to let the friendship go. But I do think it's worth a conversation. Hey, friend, I feel like we're doing different things. I feel like we want to talk about different things. I feel like we want to go different places. I feel like our interests are very different. What do you think we're both taking from this friendship? And I think that it might be time to move on. When you're hanging out with this friend, on FaceTime with this friend, talking to this friend, and you hang up or you leave and you don't really feel connected to them at all. You don't feel those warm and fuzzy feelings that you get after like really good conversation and really good closeness. You just feel like, oh, well, I just feel like either they were talking about their life and I was trying to be engaged, but I didn't really know what to say because we have nothing in common and because we're in very different phases of life. Or I was talking about my life and I felt like they couldn't really show up for me and they didn't really have anything to say. Or at the end of every sentence, they go on about their life or you go on about your life. And the only thing you have to offer to each other is, oh, that sounds really great, or oh, that sounds fun, or oh, interesting. They don't actually contribute anything to the conversation because they don't really have anything to say to that conversation. I think that's when you know it's time to let the friendship go. And that's not to say that you didn't love them, and that's not to say they didn't love you or feel close to you. It's just to say right now in this phase of life, we are not on the same path, and that's not to say that we will never be on the same path again. It's just saying right now, maybe this friendship isn't offering the both of us what we really want out of friendship, and that is okay. Someone said, advice, always tell your friend when you're upset so it doesn't bubble into a bigger problem, which I 100% completely agree with. And I'm not saying your friend says something like right in the moment and then you immediately say, hey, that really bothered me or offended me or made me upset. You can take a couple of days. You can take some space, but make sure that it's close enough to the event to where they can't say, well, I don't remember, or I don't know what you're talking about, especially if it only happened a couple of days ago, because then when they say that, they are trying to gaslight you and not loving you well. They are only trying to get their perspective across. And you have a really valuable perspective saying, hey, you did something or said something that hurt me and I didn't really appreciate it and I really want to talk about it before it becomes a bigger problem. I think that is one of the healthiest things you can do in a friendship. Say, this hurt me, you said this, you did this is the example, and I'd really like to talk about it because I love you and care about you and don't want this to become a bigger problem in our friendship. I think oftentimes really good friendships end because of bad communication, because we don't know how to express the things that hurt us. We don't know how to express that there may be problems, whether big or small, and small problems deserve communication too, and then they fester and fester, and before you know it, your entire friendship seems to be coated in this deep rot and you don't know how you got there. And I'm going to tell you how you got there. You got there because you refused to communicate about the small things, and the small things became medium things, and the medium things became big things. And that overtook your entire friendship, and now you don't really feel close or connected to this person anymore, because every time you're with them, you're trying to push down that feeling you have. You're trying to push down that uncomfortable, that deep disconnection, that lack of closeness, and you're just trying to get through an hour lunch, a 30-minute coffee, a 10-minute call. Every time you're trying to push it down, and you're never addressing the actual problem, which is adding new layers to said problem. I love this one. This says meeting up doesn't have to be an all day or overwhelming event. 1 to 2 hours is perfect. Oh my God, 1 to 2 hours is literally perfect, especially as we grow into adulthood and we're busy and we're exhausted and we're spending 40 hours a week working, and then we're spending 10 hours a week on our hobbies, and then we also have partners, and then we also have to cook for ourselves, and we also have pets or children, whatever it may be, and we're exhausted. I know that in previous phases of our life, it seemed so normal to spend 6 hours plus with your best friends. You would just sit there and hang out, sit on the couch, be on your phones, order meals, watch movies. It wasn't even necessarily about like talking all day. It was just about the closeness. But as we grow older, that cannot be every single time you hang out. And if you're expecting it, or they're expecting it to be every single time you hang out, it can feel really, really draining. And you can feel like you don't have the room to say, hey, I don't have it in me to spend 6 hours today. I don't have it in me to spend all day today. Can we do a 1 to 2 hour dinner? Can we just like catch up over a drink super quick? And then you feel like you can't say that because it feels like a huge step back in your friendship. But I want to remind you, it is absolutely okay to say that. This is the time that I have. This is the energy that I have. I would love to spend it with you, and I hope that is enough. This one is really good. They said, how to deal with losing a friend after 10 plus years of friendship, like overnight. And I dealt with this situation not too long ago. I had my very, very best friend just one day say she didn't want to be friends anymore. And it was really hard for me because I felt like, oh my God, what did I do? And it really did rock me. And I gave her space. I think we didn't talk for like 3 or 4 months, which was really a big deal for us. While we weren't talking every day by any means, we were talking often enough to where 3 or 4 months felt like a really long time to go without any communication. And then I reached out. And I was like, hey, I really want to talk about this. I miss being close to you. I miss just like knowing that we're in it together. Can we talk? And we talked. And what it was these very minor things over the entire course of our 6-year friendship. These very minor things that festered and became, like I was talking about earlier in the episode, this huge giant thing, and she didn't know how to communicate it because it felt like it was all too much. And at that time, I had to say, you know what? Let's talk about it. I'm going to sit here and you're going to tell me everything that's been bothering you, and I'm going to talk to you about it because I love you and I care about you. And in that moment, when your friend is telling you, hey, you are the problem, it is your obligation to listen and to show up for that friend, because it is not easy to tell your friends that you have problems with them. It is not easy to communicate sometimes, especially if you're not in the rhythm of communicating every small thing. It is really hard to sit down and be like, hey, I love you, but this is a really big problem in our friendship, or even a really small problem in our friendship, and I don't want it to become a bigger problem in our friendship. Let's work through this. Let's talk about this. And that can be really, really difficult for people. So being that friend, when you say you can talk to me about anything, that has to include yourself. Okay, this is a really juicy one. Oh my God, this is really juicy. One of y'all DM'd me and said, my best friend knew that her friend had slept with a guy I was talking to while I was talking to him and kept it from me. Once I found out, she said she was protecting the other friend, and that's why she didn't tell me. We are no longer friends, and I never even got an apology. I read that and my jaw literally dropped. So this person's best friend had another friend, and that other friend slept with the guy that original commenter was talking to at the time, and the best friend didn't tell her. And I think that is so awful. I understand wanting to protect your friends, but your best friend is interested in this guy, talking to this guy, and just for safety reasons, right? Just for like to be on the same page, because that guy could be telling you, like original commenter, that guy could be telling her, you're the only person I'm talking to, you're the only person I'm seeing, you're the only person I'm interested in. Come to find out, he slept with someone else. And all the while, original poster or original commenter could be going about this entire relationship thinking she's the only one, all to find out down the line that that's a whole entire fabricated lie, because we know sometimes men love to lie. That is just shocking to me, that you could see your best friend be excited about someone, see your best friend be interested in someone, and not tell them all the information you could possibly tell them. If I know one of my friends is talking to a guy and I see him at the Target doing his grocery shopping, I'm texting my friend, hey, just saw Johnny at Target. Like, I'm keeping my friend in the loop. So it is really shocking to me that this friend could know that her other friend slept with someone and didn't want to tell her best friend about it. That really was shocking to me. And you know what? I agree with no longer being friends. I think that I would end a friendship over that. And maybe I'm being dramatic, but I really do think that I would end a friendship over that, because that is harmful and that is mean. And there was really no reason to just like not let them know. This is another interesting one. How to deal with a lifelong friend who doesn't show up for you. I get minimal replies to sharing my life, but then she's all about sharing her new relationship. I get she's excited, but like, I'm part of this friendship and I have valid things to share too. Tired of just getting back aw or OMG responses to what I share with her. Absolutely. I had a friend recently when I moved to Denver that I felt like they could go on for an hour about their life, and I was engaged and I was active and I was showing up for them. But when it came to me and my life, all I got was literally, aw, OMG. Oh, there was no active engagement from her. And it was really, really sad and really, really hard. And over time, I was like, okay, I think that this is not just like a small lapse in judgment. I think this is maybe a personality thing. And I think that we have like different personalities. Someone who can't be an active participant in this friendship but wants me to show up and offer advice and sit with them and talk through things with them, but won't do that for me, is not someone that I really want to be in close friendship with. So I literally just said to them, I said, hey girl, I didn't say, hey girl. Oh my God. Those hey girl texts. I did not say, hey girl. But I was like, hey, this is how I'm feeling. I feel like I have been there for you when you've gone through really hard times, and I've offered advice and I've sat with you. I have done everything I possibly could to try to be a good friend to you. And I didn't know if at any point I wasn't being a good friend to you, you didn't tell me. So like, I went on this entire relationship thinking that I was being a good friend to you, and I was really proud of that. But I just feel like when the roles reversed and when I needed you to be a good friend to me, you weren't there. And I was literally met with just like blankness. Like, I'm sorry if I hurt you. I'm sorry if you felt that way. That's all I could give. Which like ultimately really did suck to hear. But now I get to invest that energy that I was investing into her into my other friends who actually want to show up and be engaged with me and be good friends to me. Another story time. I recently had this situation with a really good friend of mine. She brought me a concert ticket for my birthday, and that weekend she paid for a lot, which is how things usually go. But what was different was that this time she had a huge car expense the week of the concert. So when the weekend was over, she texted me asking me to pay her back half of what she spent on this weekend. Now, I've never asked her to buy me food or do anything, and there have been times I've Zelled her and she's literally sent it back. I did pay her back, but it did make me feel some type of way. So I asked for clarification. I said, oh, this is really interesting. So she usually pays for things for y'all, but switched it up this round. They continued to say, so we try to go out for dinner and drinks like once a month, and we usually alternate who pays. In my actual birthday, we went to the mall to hang out, and she brought me 2 bottles of perfume and this lipstick from Sephora. Mind you, I had no idea she brought the perfume because I was in a different area of the store while she was checking out. Right before the concert, she wanted to go to the mall again because she wasn't sold on the outfit she ordered. We ended up in MAC, and she spent $600. $600. Oh my God. And part of that was because she wanted both of the free bags they had to offer with minimum purchase. So she was like, you have to get something so we can get the free stuff. She is admitted to having a spending problem, and she knows I can't spend like she does, and that I don't ever expect her to buy me shit. So it sounds like, and I don't know this girl. I don't know either of these women. But here's what I'm getting. It sounds like Big Spender does indeed have a spending problem, and she only expects to be paid back when she's in a financial problem or in a financial crisis, which sounds like she had a huge car expense. So that was really putting a lull on what she was willing or ready to spend. But that said, she still spent it. She still chose to take this other girl out for her birthday. She chose to spend $600 at MAC. She chose to buy her a perfume and lipstick from, or 2 bottles of perfume and lipstick from Sephora. So it sounds like the expectation was one friend buys a lot of things, like is really big into gift giving. And so it's normal, I think, for the other friend, the original girl who sent me this, to feel like, okay, that's to be expected because that's just part of what our friendship looks like. Like she said, she sent half the money back for what she spent that weekend for the concert ticket and everything she paid for, which I think was courteous, and I do think that's the right thing to do. I think sending half the money back when it was asked for is the right thing to do. That said, I don't think that the person who sent me this was in the wrong for expecting that that wasn't an expense she was going to have to pick up, because that wasn't the common expectation in their friendship. It sounds like other friend is used to showering, used to gift giving, used to being like, it's on me, I got it. But the only reason they weren't doing it this time was because they had a big expense come up. So I do think, honestly, I think it's fair for both parties. I think it's fair for the one party to be like, hey, I'm just not in the financial place to cover things this weekend. Can you spend half? But I also think it would have been courteous to say that ahead of time. Hey, these are the plans for the weekend. Can you cover half of it? Just to give the other person the heads up, especially if they're not used to like covering half of things like this. I think it's a tricky situation. I don't know. I think it's really worth a conversation. But I did think that was really, really juicy. But I also think it goes back to just like something my mom used to tell me all the time is like, never go somewhere you can't afford to be, which I really have held true. Like, even if I'm invited somewhere, even if the expectation is the other person is going to pay for it, I still need to make sure I have enough in my bank account to cover it in case shit hits the fan, because you literally never know. Like, you could be out with your very best friend. Y'all could get a hotel. They could be paying for all this stuff, and then they could skip out on it, literally, if they wanted to. Like, you just never know. Or you could be at dinner with a man, and the man could be like, I'm going to take you out. I'm going to treat you. Y'all are at dinner. And then before you know it, you look up, he goes to the bathroom, and then he never comes back, and you have to cover the bill. You know what I mean? Like, these are awful experiences, but real life experiences that people have. So I would just say my best advice going forward is never go somewhere where you don't expect to pay. It's not really an affording thing. I don't think that this girl has like a problem affording anything. Like she said, like she sent the money back. I don't think she couldn't afford it. I just think it wasn't the expectation. But going forward, just know this friend can be kind of sometimesy, and like just have the expectation, I'm going to pay my own way. Even if she offers, you offer back. Even if she says, I got this, I can cover half. Just let her know that you are always in the position to cover your own way. Okay, this is the last one we're going to do. Okay, so I have this friend. We've been friends for a few years. She since moved but comes back to visit a lot. We have a third friend that lives in the same town as me, and me and her are really close. I'm at a place in my life where I don't feel really connected to that friend that has moved away, but the third friend keeps pulling us together. I go back and forth on whether or not I should have a friend break up with this girl or to try to phase out of this friendship over time, trying to figure out what would make people feel less hurt. Oh, that's tricky. Because I think in one way, what would make somebody feel less hurt, what would make me feel less hurt, is if somebody were just direct with me. Hey, I don't really feel connected to this friendship. I don't feel good in this friendship anymore. Like, I really devalue the time that we spent together, but I just don't think going forward we need to continue hanging out. I think over time that would make me feel less hurt than one day having this really big friendship breakup and then me being the friend who's like, oh, at what point did they stop liking me? At what point did they stop wanting to hang out with me? And then like really going over and over in that in my head and feeling like, oh, well, I guess maybe they never liked hanging out with me. But that's me and my overthinking self. Not everyone thinks like that. But I think that for me, that would make me feel less hurt. But I also think maybe it's worth a conversation with a third friend. Hey, when so-and-so comes to visit, I think y'all should hang out. I think that if you still really feel connected to that friendship, it's a really great opportunity for y'all to spend some time together. I just like don't think I need to come. I love you individually, glue friend, but I don't really feel connected to out-of-state friend. And maybe I just like don't need to be around her when she comes to visit. And it doesn't have to be drama or really a big deal at all. Other thing that I just wanted to share with you guys, I shared it on TikTok too, but I think it's like really important to share here. There was a time in my life where I was getting sick. It's when I moved to Colorado. I was getting sick and throwing up literally every time I drank, and I like couldn't understand why. And I would talk to people about it, and they're like, okay, well maybe it's the altitude. But I'm like, okay, after 2 years, I don't think it's the altitude. Like I think that maybe there's something deeper going on. And I stopped being friends with people that I was previously friends with, the people that I was drinking with most often. And lo and behold, I stopped throwing up every time I drank. What I came to find out was that I was getting so anxious and so overwhelmed every time that I was drinking with them because I knew they were not my girls. I knew they were not the people that I wanted to be spending time with. And ultimately, when you add alcohol on top of that, it only amplifies those feelings. And so I would find myself over drinking to feel like I could fit into this group, to feel like I felt good in this group. And then I would be drinking so much that I would end up being sick, or I would throw up from my own anxiety of being in that situation because we were going places I didn't really enjoy going. We were doing things I didn't really enjoy doing. We were having conversations I didn't really enjoy having. And ultimately, it just made me feel so uneasy that I was getting sick every time I drank. And I had to reflect and be like, yes, drinking can be harmful for our bodies. And yes, we should be drinking in moderation. But ultimately, I have never had this problem before. So maybe it's also a result of my environment and the people I'm surrounding myself with. Okay, I know I said that was the last one, but I literally have one more. Somebody said, how do I deal with a friend who constantly competes with me? And I'm going to say this, and I mean it when I say it. That person is not your friend. The person who feels like they are in competition with you every single time you announce something exciting for yourself is not your friend. They are not rooting for you. They are not supporting for you. They are preying on your downfall. And I know that sounds harsh, and I know that maybe sounds over the top, but give it time and they will literally show their true colors. A friend who cannot be happy for you, a friend who constantly competes with you, a friend who has to one up every single thing you tell them is not actually a friend. That is your competition, and not a competition in the way that you have to compete back, but competition in a way that you just need to remove yourself, because that is not a healthy or sustainable place to be. I just want to remind you that you are a really good person and you deserve really good people. You deserve people in your life that uplift you and love you and show up for you and rally around you in the good times and in the hard times. And if those aren't the people you have, those are the people you should seek, because you deserve them and they are coming to you. The things that you want also want you, and that includes people. I loved doing a Q&A episode. I felt like that was a lot of fun. I felt like you guys got to know me a little bit more. I felt like I got to know you guys a little bit more. So I think that we should do more Q&A topics, like friendships, maybe jobs, maybe different relationship topics. I think that'd be really, really fun for us, because this episode was actually a lot of fun to record, and there was some juicy stuff in there. So I hope that you guys took something from it and something resonates with you and something you can connect with. And to end this off, of course, I have to tell you other wonderful and beautiful ways you're going to be just fine this week, my love. You're going to be fine this week because you're going to remember that you deserve to live in a space that actually makes you feel good. So you're going to declutter literally one thing. And it's not that overwhelming, because it's just going to be one little thing that you're going to look at and say, I no longer have use for this. Maybe it served me in a previous phase of life, but it doesn't serve me now, and it has to go. And that one thing could catalyze you to do other things, or you can feel satisfied with that one thing. Either way, you're going to feel just a little bit better. You're going to be fine this week because you're going to sit down and you're going to journal about one thing you absolutely love about yourself. I guarantee you can find one thing you love about yourself. May it be your personality, your energy, the way your nose looks on your face. I don't care what it is. You're going to sit down and just express gratitude and genuine love for one thing about yourself, and you're going to feel better for doing it. This week, you are not going to let that mistake you make overpower your brain, okay? You made a mistake, and maybe it was big, maybe it was small. Ultimately, you learned from it, you've grown from it, you're going to take it, and you're going to become better from it, and then you're going to move on. You are not going to ruminate on that mistake you made, because you have too many things to do. You have too many places to be. You have an incredible version of yourself that you're going to grow into, and you cannot spend unnecessary time ruminating on a mistake that you made that you've already corrected. Okay, thanks for hanging out with me, you guys. This was such a fun episode, and I can't wait to do more of these in the future. But thank you for all of your submissions and all of your questions. I know I couldn't get to all of them, they were just kind of a lot, and I wanted to make sure that this episode time length was in, what it normally is. Maybe it's a little bit longer once I get down to editing it. But I had so much fun with you guys, and I love you so much, and I'm so thankful that you would show up here. And before you click away, just super quick, if you could take the time to leave a 5-star review on this podcast and maybe write a little something, that'd be really sweet. I would really appreciate that. I put a lot of time and energy into this podcast, and I know that you guys put a lot of time and energy into listening to it. So if you could just give me a quick review, that would mean so much to me. Okay, that's all I have for you guys. I will see you next Sunday. I love you so much. I'm on your side. Mwah.